Welcome to Truth Beyond Justice. This is my podcast, and this is my mom. And we're going to be talking about my life experiences, the things I've been through. And then I thought it would be interesting to have my mom here to just kind of weigh in on what it was like for you to kind of experience the things I went through. I might have to run and grab tissues at some point because normally when I talk about this, especially with you, it makes me cry. But I guess I'll just start with I think I was just going to kind of talk about my manic episode and just what that was like and what that was like for you. If that.
You can remember it.
Well, and that's another reason it's super helpful to have you here because I don't remember a lot of it because it was fucking crazy.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you do remember, how much the brain
Yeah.
allows you to
Like I remember general things. I remember
Okay.
so before, well, I'll preface the story with this. So, in early 2019 or 2018, when I had been seeing my therapist for a while, I was diagnosed with CPTSD, which is complex post traumatic stress disorder. And then, and I don't know, I'm sure you know about this part. And then I was going to the University of Oregon, and in my family human services class, there was like a whole thing on PTSD and like medications that were known to treat PTSD. And then the SSRI that I requested from the doctor was the SSRI that was in the presentation in class as the only SSRI known to take on the symptoms of PTSD. So that's why I wanted that one specifically
Okay.
because it was in a presentation in my family human services class. And it was literally like PTSD, one of the only medications known is this one specific SSRI. And so then because of that presentation, I was like, oh, this is going to help me. This is the only thing that is going to help me deal with life. Because when I started like realizing all of my trauma and my PTSD and stuff, it was really hard for me to kind of unpack that. And then I was like realizing it, and I was realizing like how, for lack of a better term, like mentally unstable I was. And I was realizing that it was because of the PTSD, but I didn't know how to deal with it. Like throughout my whole life I was kind of disassociated and thought that everything was totally fine. And like the first time I went to therapy, my therapist was like, "You're really high functioning." And I was like, "No, my shit's together." And she was like, "You're really high functioning." And I genuinely didn't see that.
Well, you
So
didn't know what you didn't know.
right. So, I mean, then when I realized I had CPTSD and that like the stuff my dad was doing to me was like fucked up, and just like even just his anger and his manipulation and stuff like that, it really affected me. And I didn't realize how badly it did. And then it was almost like going to therapy and like realizing it. Then it all just kind of like started flooding in. And then I almost had to like categorize my childhood and like go through my childhood and think of what was okay and what was not. And then it was like realizing all of the fucked up stuff that I had normalized in my life. And then that was like too much for me to like constantly be navigating my life, going to school, working, interning, while having to think about my entire childhood and unpack what was normalized and what was fucked up. And it was too much. And so that's why I wanted medication, because I thought that the meds would make it all okay. And it did. And so that's why when I got that prescription, they first gave me 50 milligrams. And then I was like, oh, 50 milligrams is great. And then I went back to the doctor and I was like, can I have more? Because 50 is great, but I think more would be better. And they're like, okay, we'll give you hundreds. And I was like, great, thanks. But then the pharmacy was filling the hundreds and the 50s. And so then my brain was like, if 100 is great, I bet you 150 is even better. So then I started taking 150 milligrams of an SSRI every single day. And then about, a, I want to say maybe even a couple of weeks, maybe not even then, I stopped sleeping. And so I think it was about June that I really only slept 1 to 3 hours a night for the next like 3 months. So I don't
Yeah.
know what I don't remember from lack of sleep what I don't remember from the SSRI and what I don't remember from the mania. But then I also remember they prescribed me 11 different medications.
It was a lot.
Yeah. And so, what do you remember about that time? What was your experience?
Man, you just talked, and I got tired.
Yeah.
I didn't realize just listening to someone talk how exhausting that would make me.
That's fair.
So,
Yeah.
but you've always been energetic and you've always talked a lot. But looking back and knowing what I know now,
Yeah.
you didn't talk like that. It was
Yeah.
like speed talking.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't take a breath between things. You would just
Yeah.
go.
And then I remember changing purses all the time.
Oh yes.
Like I would have a purse for the first like 2 hours of the day, and then something would happen, and that purse could not meet my needs anymore, and I would have to change purses completely. And I think I did that like 5 times a day.
To sum it up, Rich said she reminds me of a medicated person on meth.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant because I've never been around it. I've never seen people on meth, and you know, I didn't think anything about it. But what hit me is one day we were going somewhere and you were so convinced that if we went to the ER that they were going to keep you, and then you would not have your things with you.
Yes.
And they would not let you go back and bring it in. So you had, everywhere we go, we had to constantly pack the vehicle. We constantly had to pack the vehicle with things that you need to take with you. So if they kept you, you'd have it.
Okay.
Not that they would actually let you have it.
Right.
But it was your comfort. It was your security. It was your...
Yeah.
So quite frankly...
So like I was constantly afraid that I was going to get like hospitalized against my will.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so quite frankly, and I literally mean the mound of items you threw in the Jeep.
Yeah.
It's about 2-3 feet tall.
And this happened regularly?
Every time. Everything, even if you came over to my house,
yeah,
it happened. And then when we got to my house, we would unload everything.
Yeah.
Because you were afraid that if it stayed in the car, somebody would break in and get it.
What were these things?
Hold on. And then we'd unload it.
Yeah.
And it was about... it was anything. It was very random. It was purses. It was blankets. It was a pillow. It could be things like, not necessarily pairs of things. It could be like one shoe, not a pair of shoes.
Just like
it was a blanket. It could be a caboodle. It could be
just something I was attached to or decided had value that I couldn't live without.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in your mind, it did. And it was of great importance. So we always loaded it up. We always unloaded it. And we loaded it back. And we carried it with us everywhere you went with me. We carried it. And it wasn't always the same things.
Right.
It was always different things that you would add to it.
Of course.
Like at my house, you would say, oh, where's this? And I'd get it. And you would add it.
Oh my God.
So
I don't remember that at all.
So that's very hard.
Yeah.
To see your loved one like that.
Yeah. Oh, see, I said we were going to need tissues, but I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you hadn't seen me, because I was very high functioning. I had made it through life. Yeah.
This wasn't my daughter.
And I knew, and I think I think that was the hardest part too, is I knew it wasn't me, but there was nothing I could do about it. Yeah. And no one would listen to me. And I knew I was crazy. And I knew I sounded crazy, but no one would listen to what I had to say.
But not only that.
Yeah.
My previous experience with their sister.
Yeah.
I fought so hard.
Yeah.
And not only would they not listen to you, I know they wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it's because of your age.
Because I was.
So it's that catch-22. You are a legal adult.
Right.
Even though you're going through this, mental breakdown.
Yeah.
So you're going through a mental breakdown, and they deem you, it's like, okay, well, she's a little legal adult. She can make up her own mind. It's like, yeah. Are you kidding me?
Do you see
You're
her?
letting people who are in mental distress make decisions that's going to affect the rest of their life, and I don't get a say.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I understand, because you do have people that aren't good people.
Yeah.
And they do hurt people, and they do make bad decisions. So I understand it's a catch-22, but it's like, if you follow all the records that involve me, you know I tried to do what's best for my girls.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I'm not going to do anything to hurt you all, but I still didn't have a say, because you didn't give me permission, because
and I was an adult and I was crazy.
You were an adult.
But I couldn't make my own decisions, and I think that's what.
But you couldn't make your own decisions, because they didn't let anyone else make it for you.
Right. And I like you said, I do see the point where it's a different mom. It's not you that's the mom, and it's someone that's being manipulative or potentially hospitalizing their child for their benefit
because they don't want to deal with them or whatever.
Right. But that wasn't the case with you. And so, how long did all of this go on before I called you? Because I remember I went to the doctor.
You mean what? Before you called me saying you were tired and you wanted to run into a building?
Yes. How long was this going on before? Because I think of that as the peak.
I think that was the peak.
Yeah.
So, and do you know, honestly, I don't know the timeline.
Yeah.
Because I was just on high alert.
Well, and I was traveling a lot, so I didn't get back that summer until the end of August, and then that.
So none of this involved me until you got back from China.
Yeah, until I was too far gone.
Yeah,
I was so far gone at that point.
So, like the psychiatrist said, I think at that point you were starting to come down, but you were so far gone.
Well, no, not in China. I think
after China.
Yeah, well, because I came back from China and I knew I wasn't well, and I went to the doctor and I asked for treatment. I didn't want more meds. I wanted treatment, and they said, "We can't refer you for treatment." And then,
wait, you didn't get the meds until after China?
No, I know. I'm saying as soon as I came back from China, I made a doctor's appointment, and I begged for psychiatric treatment, for intensive outpatient or something, because I knew, because I was crying. I said, I just want sleep. I can't sleep. I just want sleep. I don't know what to do. I just want sleep. And so then they gave me a prescription for Ambien. Mm-hmm. And then I was told that if you're manic and you take Ambien does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. So then I stayed up for 48 hours straight. So by the time everything happened, I had, and then I kept taking, I kept forgetting my meds and then retaking them. So there were times where I think I took my SSRI 4 different times during the day.
Is Ambien the date rape
Ambien
drug?
I think it can be.
There's one that the pharmacy told me.
Yeah.
To keep an eye on you, because a lot of people take it, they don't remember what they did.
Yes.
And
that's Ambien.
Basically they shop or whatever, and they don't remember it in their throat.
I was manic and insane, and they gave me Ambien, which then just kept me awake, and it was really bad. And so then And I think that might have been like a week or so, because we were in and out of the hospital a little bit, but they could never find reasons to keep me. Do you remember that? And then finally it came to a head when I was driving and I called you.
But they wouldn't let me go back there with you. So when I took you to the ER.
But they let my boyfriend?
No. They didn't let anybody, because we went across the street to the old Glenwood.
Yeah.
And had to eat because we were hungry. But they wouldn't let anybody. They wouldn't let anybody
in
go
the
back
ER?
there. Yeah. And that really bothered me because you weren't well. And it's like, what is she going to say? What are they going to tell her or get her to agree with, or what?
Right. And I had been a police officer at this point. So like I had seen like police holds, and I had seen involuntary psych holds, and I had seen what the police could do to people against their will if they thought they were crazy. And I was so scared of that because I know how closely hospitals work with police departments.
Yes.
That I was so scared of being in a hospital and telling them how I really felt, because I was worried they weren't going to believe me, and that the police were going to somehow get involved too. Yeah, it was crazy. And so then, I think about a week or so after that, because I think we went to the hospital a couple times, and then about a week after that, I finally called you, but I don't think I was like distraught or anything. I wasn't like crying. I wasn't upset. Like it was almost like an epiphany. Like
you called me and you weren't feeling good.
Right, but like I think I was like excited about driving into that wall. Like I don't think I was like distressed, like, oh my God, I want my life to be over. I was literally like, oh my God, Mom, I just had this realization. If I drive into a building right now, these thoughts inside my head that aren't mine are gonna stop. And I was like I think it was like very delirious. It wasn't like
just a way to stop the thoughts, not to
I don't think I was trying to kill myself.
You wanted that to stop, and you wanted to sleep.
Because the thoughts inside my head, I don't even remember what they were now, but I just knew this isn't how my brain works. This isn't how I respond to things. This isn't how I deal. Like I was so confused, and my brain wasn't my own, and I didn't understand this brain that was inside my head.
Oh, you did a good job reasoning things out. Because if there was something, if I didn't agree with something, you would just argue with me and say this, but Mom, this is, why would I do this? Why would I tell you this if it wasn't? It's like,
no, that's fair. So I'm still very logical. And like
you were actually. You sounded very logical.
I was very convincing as well. Well, because
you were
because when I called you telling you that I was going to drive into the building, and you said, let's not do that. And then
that sounds like me.
And then you drove. You were like, are you comfortable with telling me where you are right now? And I remember I told you, and I don't know why I did.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. And you were just like, okay, will you stay on the phone with me? And I was like, okay. And I remember I was by the U of O campus at that point, and we left my car where you picked me up, and we went to the ER, and then I convinced all of the doctors and nurses that I was totally fine and that I was not having a manic episode.
And that's it. Yeah. You were very convincing.
Yeah. Because but what's so weird is like I was so scared of what they could have done, but that I didn't want them to know. But then they knew. So then I convinced all the doctors and nurses that I was totally fine, that I didn't need help, and they released me. And then that's when you stepped in.
But yeah, she does need help.
Yeah. And I remember you telling me that you essentially told them that if they let me go, I was going to go kill myself. And then they were going to have a lawsuit that they were not going to know what to do with.
It was on them.
Yeah.
And they wanted you to get on a waiting list for a psychiatrist, and I threw a fit.
Yeah.
Because waiting list minimum 6 months.
Yeah.
It's like, no, she'll be dead before then.
Yeah.
And I argued with them.
But I think that was such a pivotal moment. Like, I think that if you wouldn't have argued with them.
If I said, okay.
I think I would have died.
Well, I know you would have.
Yeah. And so, they did end up putting me on a psych hold. And I think it was just for a few hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I convinced all of the doctors and nurses to let me keep all my jewelry because I told them they were all religious, or all religious items, and that they could not strip me of my religion, because I knew that that's illegal. It's a legal loophole.
Yeah.
So I'm completely insane, but I'm still coming up with legal loopholes and convincing doctors and nurses that I'm competent. Like, that was wild.
Yeah.
And then I think because of the psych hold, I think that I got to go into the intensive outpatient treatment. I don't think I would have gotten that without the psych hold. Do you?
I don't think so.
Like, I think that the psych hold was like a precursor to the intensive outpatient treatment. And then I did that for 60 days. And that was like 15 hours a week.
Oh, I don't know. I just remember I would drive you there and I'd pick you up.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure it was like 15 hours a week. I think I went 3 times for 5 hours a time. And I wasn't able to work during that time, but I was still going to school. And then that was the point where I fell into like this super deep depression, because I was like, I have no value at this point. Like, I can't keep a job. I'm not mentally stable enough. My mom has to give me rides everywhere. I can't drive a car. I'm showing up looking like a hungover rock star to intensive outpatient treatment. Like, I I thought that I had nothing to give. And I remember that Christmas, you gave me these pajamas, the pink ones that I love, that
the
say like
Lady Boss.
Yeah, that say Lady Boss on the inside. And
yeah.
I got them. But I was so like, I was excited, but I just cried when I got them.
Oh.
Because I saw that like the inside of the sleeve said Lady Boss, and I was like, that's not me. I'm not that person. I'm not a boss in any way. And it's like I was so sad and depressed, and I was having such a hard time that I just could not see my value at all. And then it's so funny because within 6 months, not even, of you giving me those pajamas, I started my own company and graduated college and started my business and essentially like accomplished and became everything that I wanted to be within 6 months of the darkest time of my life. And I don't know what to do with that information. I'm thankful for it. I appreciate it. I don't know what would have happened if that wouldn't have worked out. But I mean, I think that was one of the crazy things too, right? Is that I printed off the PI application like 27 different times when I was crazy. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Because I found it everywhere. I found it in drawers. I found it under my bed. I found it in my nightstand. I found it in folders. I found it in binders. Like, it would not stop. And so one thing when I was crazy that I held on to was, I have to be a PI. And I didn't even know what a PI was. And the only reason I figured out what a PI was because after my mania and after my depression, I just Googled PIs and I started calling them. And it was like, will you talk with me? And then only one person talked to me, but he basically said that I wouldn't be able to accomplish anything or like pay like middle class bills with this job. And then the other person was my mentor, Rich Hersey, who spoke with me for about 30 minutes to an hour and was just like, I work murder cases, I work federal cases, I do this, I do this. And I was like, wait, so this job is everything I've ever wanted and more. And it kind of just all fell into place. But yeah, that was definitely like the hardest moment of my life. But because of that, right, I legitimately tell most of my clients that the only thing that keeps me on this side of the table and them on that side of the table is the fact that I had financial resources and a mother that cared a lot. Because
I agree.
I genuinely believe that if all of my clients had a mom that would fight doctors and nurses for them and drive them to appointments and like was there to support them, I don't think any of my clients would make the decisions that they make.
I was just thinking, there's one time We had to go get a scarf for the sugar gliders.
That.
And I learned in this situation that if not if you push back.
Yeah.
But if I make you, or if you feel argumentative, it's just going to go on and just not be good.
Yeah.
So we drove at 10 o'clock at night to Portland in this parking lot to meet this person, which was a woman, thank God.
Yeah.
A smaller frame woman, to buy scarves.
Yep. It was a scarf deal in a park at night, or a parking lot at night.
It was. And I had all of that stuff in the back of the Jeep as well.
I also bought sugar gliders. Like, they're not the ones I have now. Like, I bought a set of sugar gliders when I was insane also. Like,
oh, is that when you decided
yes.
to buy those?
Like, one day I decided it.
Yeah, I know.
And then I had to have... I decided... I was very crazy. And I was deciding I needed... Clearly, because I had a mountain with me at all times. Like, for some reason, my brain would just decide that I had to have these things or else I would, like, die.
Yes. And that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It was... You had to have it.
But, like, there was, like, this weird feeling of impending doom. Like, if
you didn't do it, or if you didn't get it, your world will end and turn upside down.
But I don't, like, looking back on it now, I don't actually know what I thought was going to happen. Like, there was no actual consequence. Like, it was just a feeling inside me. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, if I didn't have this, like, I was going to die for some reason, but like logically that makes no sense at all. So,
but yeah, unfortunately you broke down, but that experience also built you up. But like you said, if you didn't have the support system that you had, then you would have never gotten built up.
No, I would have just
would have just stayed.
And then I probably would have started using drugs to cope with the fact that reality didn't make sense, that I ruined my own life, that I ruined... Because if you had...
You would spiral.
Yeah, if you wouldn't have been there the way that you were for me and you would have shunned me or pushed me away, like, then I would have lost my family, I would have lost my job, I would have lost my partner, like, my world would have just been gone. But instead, you chose not to let that happen to me. And you chose to take care of me and make sure that I was going to be okay. And because of that, now I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and I'm helping people that were in very similar situations to where I was. And I don't think I would have had that capacity or that understanding or be able to hold that space had I not gone through what I went through. So,
agreed.
I think at this point, as hard as it is to say, is that I'm really thankful for that experience, because I don't think I'd be the person I am today, or have the job that I have, or be able to speak out loud about this stuff had I not gone through that. And it's also really funny because even on my worst days, when everything feels like it's going to shit, I'm still not insane. And so it's really added a huge perspective to my life, is that even on my worst days and even when nothing's going right, I'm still not insane anymore. And so it really helps me keep things in perspective and remind myself that if I made it through that and I'm still alive, like, I can literally make it through anything.
Life is nothing but a constant change.
Yeah.
And it beats you up and then it lifts you up. So, but as all, it's true on all the way around. Life is nothing but just constant lessons, and it's your decision what you do with those lessons.
This is another reason I want to do on my podcast, for all of the mom wisdom that you're...
But remember this. I keep saying this.
Okay.
This, I heard something, it's like, I really like it. This is my first life too.
Yeah.
So not only are you trying to figure out life,
Totally.
Moms are too.
Yeah. But I think, but just even that awareness, a lot of parents don't have that. Like I've told you about my juvenile clients that I've like lectured back and forth, and then I'm like, I'm sorry, I'll stop with the mom lecture now. And my clients will go, well, what do you mean? My parents never talked to me like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I must have been good at lecturing.
But what I'm saying is the things that you don't think of as you parenting or momming are the foundational blocks that have made me the person I am. And so even just by us having this conversation, like people out there that don't have moms or didn't have supportive moms or don't know what a good mom looks like can now watch this podcast and see our interaction and see what a loving, supportive, caring mother looks like, which can either show them potentially ways that they're making poor decisions as mothers based on the way they were mothered, or maybe someone who doesn't know how a mother should be. Like even just that visibility brings awareness. Does that make sense?
It does. So what you're saying is that everyone is a product of their environment.
Yes.
So a perfect example would be your sister grew up thinking that's what dads do. Dads yell. They tell you.
Well, not just my sister. I mean, I did too. Yeah.
I understand this. Yes. But then when I married my second husband, one day she said, it broke my heart. When's Rich gonna yell at me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Yeah. She goes, when is he gonna yell at me? And I'm like, he's not.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand that because that's all she knew. Right.
And so she was just like waiting for it.
And like your clients, and like everybody, that was her norm.
Yeah.
That's your client's norm.
Yeah.
They don't know otherwise.
Nope. And they're waiting for the other shoe to drop normally. Yep. Always. Yeah. And so, and I remember too, like you've had conversations with my sister and she's talked about how her taste in men or like awareness or like what she was settling for then changed after she saw your relationship with my stepdad, because she was able to see the way a husband should treat a wife instead of what we grew up with in the home, which was essentially my father just yelling, manipulating, and taking advantage of everyone in the house and being completely selfish. And
everything's everybody else's fault.
Yeah. So I think just the visibility and having that and seeing it can allow people to question their realities and be like, is this the only thing that's out there? Right?
True.
Because if you have a shit mom and you're just like, oh, moms are shit, that's just what it is. But then maybe you see this podcast and you see you and you're like, I deserved that mom. That's the type of mom I deserve. And then you can grow from that, right? And
you can decide what kind of mom you want to be.
Exactly. Instead of just repeating the behaviors because that's all you know. And so like that's one thing that I've just been so thankful for the internet is just all of the awareness and all of the visibility and just people being able to show them their true selves and like allow other people to then be themselves because they see other people being themselves. And I think it's really beautiful. And that's why I'm doing this. So.
If everyone's open to change.
Yeah. Which some people aren't. Key. Yep, that's very true. And you can't make people change that don't want to change. Exactly. They have to want to.
What's that saying?
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
You got it.
You know, all of your weird Southern sayings that I've said to people my whole life, I think they're very common because you always said them to me, but they're not super common.
They are not.
And people look at me like I'm really, like, don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why that's a saying?
I forgot why.
Because they're teeth. It shows you how much the horse is worth. So essentially, if you're given a gift horse, you shouldn't look it in the mouth to see what it's worth. You should just accept the gift and be thankful. So, all right, I think that's everything. Did you want to add anything? No? All right.
No.
Cool. Thanks for being here.